Hello and welcome to the online walkthrough of the exhibition Baroque Archipelago at Mizuma Gallery. I'm Siuli, the curator of the show, and I'll be taking you through the works in this exhibition. Baroque Archipelago is my love letter to Indonesia. This exhibition brings together the work of contemporary artists and designers. It is a celebration of Indonesia's rich artisan and craft traditions, a celebration of its repository of diverse cultural influences, and the synergies between its creative communities. This show also celebrates cultural regeneration and resistance, how artists and designers alike rework traditions and interpret them for contemporary times, and how, in their imagery and aesthetic strategies, they articulate forms of resistance against a monolithic identity, choosing instead to celebrate Indonesia's complex and syncretic culture. I wanted to say something about the title. The archipelago of the title refers, of course, to Indonesia, and the adjective Baroque was an opportunity to reference the rich craft traditions of the country, as well as a reference to the Baroque pearl, an irregularly shaped pearl prized precisely for its asymmetry. The process of a pearl's formation, where a foreign object or external irritant is enveloped in layers of precious nacre as a defense mechanism, was for me a beautiful analogy to Indonesia's response to the foreign cultures that found their way to her shores. The archipelago adopted these external influences, resulting in the evolution of a unique Indonesian identity. The idea of the pearl and layers of covering and adornment extends into the exhibition, where a lot of current issues of cultural regeneration and resistance is articulated through forms of dress and its role in the shaping of public and personal identities and even national identity. I would like to start by introducing the work of designer TOTON Jaanuar, who is behind TOTON the label. TOTON's creations translate the beauty of Indonesia's rich traditions into contemporary designs, while also commenting on the contradictions and tensions in Indonesian society today. His recent collections examine the current climate in Indonesia, where notions of female sexuality and public identities are shifting towards a regulated conservatism. TOTON's Fall-Winter 19 collection explores ideas of veiling and censorship, starting with an evocative mood board comprising portraits of women from the archipelago taken from the archives of the Tropen Museum. These are overlaid with embroidered images of Javanese mountain flowers. The flowers obscure parts of the women's bodies in what may be seen as a delicate, aesthetic act of veiling or censorship, the imposition of relatively recent or modern imported codes of decorum. These ideas have been translated into translucent gowns and tunics with textured floral motifs veiling parts of the body. One runway look in particular also incorporates a tulle head covering or hijab, a reference to the current climate and increasing religious conservatism taking root in Indonesian society. This outfit is from TOTON's Spring-Summer 21 collection, which was born out of the ongoing pandemic and lockdown situation. Observing how people clung on to spiritual beliefs in times of uncertainty, the designer reflected on the spectrum of belief systems in Indonesia, which are often syncretic in nature. Silhouettes for the Spring-Summer 21 collection are drawn from those of traditional costumes from Aceh and Sumatra, and paired with pieces of armor for the runway presentation, signifying a form of talismanic protection as well as a fierce femininity. We will return to this idea of femininity or feminine dress as a form of defense or armor when we look at the work of Octora. Next, we have the work of another designer, LULU LUTFI LABIBI. LULU LUTFI LABIBI is well known for using lurik, this striped fabric, exclusively in his collections, transforming and elevating this humble and once overlooked textile with his signature cutting and draping techniques. His items of clothing are indicative of the far-ranging cultural influences that have shaped and continue to shape artistic creations in Indonesia. A white kebaya top, for instance, pays homage to the long history of this traditional feminine dress in Indonesia as well as the Southeast Asian region, and its numerous iterations shaped by various stylistic influences. The wrap style of LULU LUTFI LABIBI's kebaya is a nod to other forms of Asian dress such as the kimono, and its lace sleeves hark back to the colonial influence on forms of dress in the archipelago, where lace was imported from Europe and incorporated into kebaya designs for the social elite. The designer's signature lyric garments marry traditional Javanese textiles with a contemporary wabi-sabi aesthetic. And in their silhouettes, we can see references to the aesthetics of two Japanese designers that LULU LUTFI LABIBI admires, Yohji Yamamoto and Rei Kawakubo. What's interesting as well is that many of LULU LUTFI LABIBI's garments do not have modern closures such as zippers and buttons, and pay homage to the art of drape and fold that was once common in the region. His clothes can also be styled in several ways. They are often unisize and unisex, offering a freedom in the exercise of its wearer's creativity, in contrast to the sometimes limiting prescribed codes of dress in societies past and present. We come now to the work of an artist who takes on the form and symbolism of the kebaya. Octora's work has explored forms of dress that have been co-opted in the articulation of national agendas and other interests. This installation, titled Nonya's Armor, was presented at the Jogja Biennale in 2008 and takes on the kebaya, a form of national dress for women in Indonesia, which is laden with histories and notions of national pride, tradition, and feminine ideals. These bodices are made of metal mesh, the delicate white filigree conveying ideals of feminine beauty, but also suggesting a steely undercurrent. The kebaya is presented both as an aesthetic object as well as a form of armor, suggesting that the adoption of accepted modes of dress can be a form of defense as well as dissimulation. Clothing can be incredibly powerful and loaded, and can shape its wearers so much so that the subject who wears the kebaya is subsumed underneath the persona projected. This can work both ways, and Octora's work and its title suggest that sometimes a semblance of conformity may be liberating or empowering. The idea of donning clothing as armor is perhaps all the more heightened in Indonesia today, where codes of dress have come under public scrutiny and are becoming vigorously policed. Next, we turn to the work of Mella Jaarsma. Mella has long worked with body coverings and shrouds in her art-making practice. For her, these garments are potent signifiers of race and cultural origins. These two hanging sculptures and the pair of videos come from her recent work, the Makna Project. Makna can be translated as meaning, and in this project, Mella Jaarsma investigates how meaning is invested in what one wears. The inspiration for this project stemmed from the artist's observation of a ritual in Bali, where villagers and priests came together to recharge the spiritual energies of sacred masks and costumes by placing images of the entity represented by the mask on top of the costume, thereby charging and reanimating the costume with meaning and symbolism. In a similar vein, Mella questions the nature of the urgencies of contemporary life, which can be invested in the clothing we wear and hence projected to the world. Two shrouds, one colored black to represent freedom of expression and civil rights, and the other colored white to represent religion and faith, are overlaid with images taken from local as well as international media, to highlight as well as to initiate discussion of some of the pressing social issues of our time by attaching them to that most intimate layer, one close to our bodies. Laden with these signs and signifiers, Jaarsma's costumes also question how we might interpret signs and social identities attached to bodies through clothing, so much so that they almost overwhelmed the subject. We come now to the work of Budi Agung Kuswara. Budi's ornate images exemplify the spirit of Baroque with their heady syncretism of diverse cultural influences and surfaces beautifully lavished with detail. His painting, Balinese Baroque No. 3, explores the image of Bali as promoted in Western tourism advertisements of the past and the continuing role of these external forces in shaping the island's identity and image. The face of the central figure in his painting is that of a Balinese woman who appeared in advertisements for tour packages in the 1930s. She is dressed rather incongruously in European dress, complete with a billowy crinoline, a commentary on the civilizing influence of the West. She is surrounded by a cornucopia of symbols connoting tropical exoticism as well as European notions of luxury, a parallel to the hyperbolic fantasies of Bali parlayed in advertisements for overseas markets. At the same time, this pastiche of images also acknowledges the rich cultural palimpsest of Bali and its blending of diverse influences to evolve a uniquely syncretic identity that stands as a form of resistance to the hegemony of a singular national identity. Last but not least, we have the work of Agan Harahap. Agan works with digital imaging to create images that are often incongruous and humorous. In this new work, he takes on the notion of cultural regeneration and resistance. Here we see a group of traditional dancers, or ledik, attired in their costumes in a moment of repose. While staged to resemble an archival image, the poses of the women appear wholly modern and have in fact been appropriated from a group portrait of popular Korean girl band Blackpink. Like these contemporary pop idols, ledik are the stars of the traditional Tayub dance, a performance often characterized by seductive movements and accompanied by liquor treats. Tayub is closely linked to the rhythms of life in agrarian village communities of Central and East Java, and the traditional cultural form has in recent years come under fire and deemed inappropriate to moral and religious values. In Agan's observation, Tayub, like so many other cultural forms, has transformed in line with the needs and norms of the times, so that its existence can be accepted in the eyes of the community. In this way, his ledik may be read as a portrait of Indonesia's multifaceted ethnic makeup and pluralism, as well as a statement of its cultural regeneration and resistance, where traditional forms adopt new layers and evolve new forms, like the titular Baroque pearl, as a means of remaining relevant and vital. I hope you've enjoyed this walkthrough. If you're in Singapore, please come and see the works in person. The exhibition runs from the 22nd of January till 21st February at Mizuma Gallery, Singapore at Gillman Barracks. See you soon.